Awesome. Well, hello. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Eunice Ajim show. I am your host, and in this episode, we are going to have a conversation. I think right now, and I've mentioned this like even in my last video, that I technically look at opportunities when I'm making investments that have been proven before. And I wanted to share like a very specific example. A couple of years ago, probably at least 10 to 20 years ago, three German brothers saw how amazing eBay was performing. And they went out there and tried to meet the team at eBay and see if they could like pretty much franchise eBay and take it to Germany. And that request got denied. So they decided that they were going to go back to Germany and pretty much replicate exactly what eBay was doing in the US, because it was getting so much traction and they knew that the market was ready for it to work in Germany. That company, in less than a year, I believe eBay bought it for maybe 43 million or something in that like. And 43 million was a lot of money 10, 15 years ago. So what they did, they were like, oh my God, like this is actually working. And then what they ended up doing is that they launched a venture studio. Remember I mentioned the venture studio earlier when I said that the venture studio is pretty much like when it's very similar to VC. But instead of just going out there and like fetching for companies, typically the founders have ideas and they incubate those ideas within their venture studio and help with a lot more than just funding. They help with like product development, marketing, sales, and everything. So when they saw that idea started working in Germany, they said, you know what? We think a lot of things that have been successful in the US, it's only a matter of time before these companies are successful in other emerging markets. And really, that's how even like Jumia came about, right? They wanted to replicate Amazon, but like Amazon for Africa. And I think they replicated like a couple of other business models. And today, those average brothers are probably worth 1.2 billion. That's a lot of money for just replicating ideas. And the question is, for a lot of the fact that there's so much competition out there, and today a lot of companies don't even want you to like go out and build something that is similar to what they're building, or even like something that could easily grab their customers. Yeah. So typically in any legal agreement, even with employees agreement in today's market, typically, you are not supposed to build anything that is like exactly similar to the company that you're leaving. So maybe a lot of African founders need to like start making sure that like when they're hiring employees, they need to have terms and conditions that if they ever decided to leave the company, they cannot go and build the exact same company or even try to steal their clients. But what they can do is that within the organization, and I've seen a lot of founders do this, is that they're building maybe like a very successful startup, and then they see that a customer, like maybe they start seeing a trend that many customers have this particular problem, but then the company that they're working for at the moment have no intention of ever launching that product. So they decide to like step out and actually build that company. That is absolutely okay, right? Because it is a very different product and it's actually a need where you can actually go back to your previous employer and actually say, I could see a collaboration opportunity between the two of us where I could send you customers, because the same customers that I am looking for are the same customers that also has the need that you're solving. So actually see it as an opportunity. What is different, or like what we don't want, is that that company actually goes out and build the exact replica of what you're building, especially when they know all the ins and outs of your company. You're actually not even supposed to speak about it when you leave the premise of that company. So that is the one that I'm like, you shouldn't do. But if it's like build another product that is complementary or like completely different from what you were building from your previous employer, that's very common. And again, like, it is no news that a lot of African companies that are being built today are tech. I don't want to say copy and paste, because that's a little bit different. For example, like, we see a lot of similarities between like Uber Eats and maybe like, Glovo or Chowder, but there are also a lot of nuances, as like Uber in Africa, I have to pay cash. I don't have to, but like, that's the preferred method for a lot of drivers, versus in the US, that's not even an option, because Uber has to take out their fees. There are different nuances that I saw here for Uber that it doesn't necessarily work in the US, or at least it's not even a functionality like security. Like, one of my friends that ordered an Uber, they were like, hey, like, this guy will not even move unless I give him a pin. That was unheard of, right? So there are just different things that you have to do to adapt to that market. I don't know exactly how Uber, I think Uber has done a really good job at adapting in other emerging markets. But I also think that there are also a lot of other markets where like Uber is not the most popular. Like, for example, if you go to Cameroon, Uber is not the most popular ride sharing company. They have something completely different. And so there's still opportunities for them to like replicate something similar and to have enough market share to potentially become that $1 billion company. And even if they don't become a $1 billion company and they and they end up selling for 50 million, 100, 200, 500 million, because we know that it's a proven business model, we're typically entering in that opportunity at a very low valuation. And if we can invest in as many possible companies, to like as many similar companies, you can still get a really good return if you have 50 million to like $500 million exits into multiple companies. So I still think there's a viable business models over there. And I honestly don't think competition is bad for business. I think competition can coexist with each other. For example, we like to take the example of Uber so much, but like one of the biggest competition in the US that came in the times of Uber was Lyft. There are markets in the US where Lyft is way more popular than Uber, and there are other markets where Uber is more popular than Lyft. But you almost never hear about Lyft, but like both of them are coexisting in the US very well. I mean, we've spoken about eBay, but like after eBay, so many other opportunities came. We have now in the likes of like Etsy, or like very specific for like very similar to eBay, but like for very specific reasons. So I just think that there's a lot of opportunities for the African context, and competition is not always a bad thing. In fact, when founders pitch me and they tell me that, oh, I don't have any competition, I know you're lying. They're like, oh yeah, like I'm the only one doing this. I'm like, no, there must be somebody out there doing the exact same thing. And if you don't know about them, then maybe you're not doing your research well enough. So you need to be able to like go look at the competition, be able to like pull out like what are the similarities, what are the differences, what is your significant advantage that will eventually make you be the leader, versus what is the advantage that they might not have that will make them the loser. So I hope that you found this podcast episode useful, and until next time, I hope that you're living the best version of your African dream. Have a blessed day.